Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's Monday, so you know that means they're going to be doing something about the metagame. It's going to be the top 10 best decks this weekend. We just had the Card Trooper $5,000 tournament. We had the Melbourne Regional Championships, and of course we're in our Astral Radiance format. That being said, we're going to be giving you the top 10 best decks here. So if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think the top 10 decks are. Even just saying hi boosts that YouTube algorithm. If you're trying to pick up any of these cards, you can go to PTCGO Store.com, plug in code Lesage5 to save 5% on your next order of online codes. That being said, we don't want to waste too much time here, so let's jump into our number 10 spot. Let's get it. You are now watching Zach Lesage, the best place to learn about competitive Pokemon TCG. Let's get it. Kicking it off at number 10, we have Blissey V with Miltank. Now, this deck is heavily based off of Shintaro Ito's top 8 finish at the late night series, and Blissey is going to be getting all those energies from the discard pile with his attack, doing a lot of damage. Now, this has already been a deck, and it was like kind of a top 20-ish deck for like a while. Miltank really pushes this deck over the edge, giving it that Miracle Body ability, so it's not affected by your opponent's Pokemon V, which sometimes if they do not have an out, some of these decks like Turbo, Dialga, VSTAR that just won the late night series, they just don't have an out to it, so it's one of those things where Miltank can win matchups. I think Radiant Greninja also gives this deck a gigantic boost, and I mean, Roxanne Path certainly has to be a difficult card to come by. It's one of those decks where it seems okay positioned in the metagame, and if you run into the right matchups, I think you can go on a little bit of a tear, but it might not be necessarily the most competitive out of all of these decks. I think a lot of decks are trying to find answers to Miltank, and I mean, Blissey seems cool, but it's a glorified PTCG Live theme deck in my opinion. I don't know, do you like Blissey? Do you hate Blissey? I think it's just okay. This is to me the definition of mid, but obviously that's what we're going to get when it's my list and this is the top 10 decks. So that's why this deck's a little bit low, but if you like Blissey, again, let's talk about it. Totally love to spark a discussion. Jumping into our number 9 spot, we got a newcomer on the list, and this is an updated version of Regigigas' late night series winning Turbo Dialga V-Star deck. Now, this is not a deck that I was expecting to come out of Astral Radiance, and I mean, I played around with Dialga V-Star. It's definitely was a personal project of mine. I didn't expect it to see Celebration Mew, a bunch of scoop up nets, air balloons, all that kind of stuff. So after this deck won the late night series, a bunch of Australian players took it to Melbourne Regional Championships, turned it into a Turbo Palkia deck, and I took a lot of inspiration from that, so overall it's a full circle, and I think just adding the second, basically a 3-3 line of Dialga instead of going 2-2 sounds a lot better, adding a Diancie sounds a lot better, just clearing up some of the spacing issues when it comes to this deck seems a lot better. So the goal here is to really just rip a bunch of trainer cards and item cards from Mew, I guess item cards because it can only grab item cards, Metal Saucer, accelerate those energies onto Dialga V, and then really just attack, go cross switch your Chronos V-Star, then attack with its first attack. Like, I mean, it's a cool deck, definitely not the most polished deck in the world, but it's turbo, it's aggressive. That means that it does have some faults. When it's turbo, it doesn't mean the most streamlined deck of all time, right? It means that we're just playing a lot of copies of cards and we're really trying to do something aggressively. So I think this deck's cool. I think it's worthwhile to test against if you haven't necessarily tested against it. So build this deck, try against it, and I mean, it's pretty fun if you're looking to play Dialga. But I do like the way that Palkia version is built there, and maybe more on that in a little bit, but no leaks. Let's see what's going on with our number 8 pick. Hopping into number 8 is the tried and true Arceus Inteleon deck. Now, this deck is basic. It is vanilla ice cream. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be using Arceus V-Star to accelerate energies onto Arceus V-Star, Charon's Care when we get a little bit of damage on us, and we got Starmie V in case we need to finish some things up. It's good against other Arceus variants, and I mean, it can also be good against things like Turbo Dialga V-Star. This deck is just supposed to be pure consistency, where we're just going to be using Trinity Charge, Trinity Nova, using the Shady Dealings Inteleon line to kind of search things out with Drizzile and stuff like that. And then we have a couple tricks like Path to the Peak with Roxanne or Marnie, and I mean, not the most exciting deck, and a lot of decks are building off of this. I wouldn't be surprised in this next week if we saw the Starmie line morph into a 1-1 Surfing Pikachu, or, I mean, Flying Pikachu sounds good too after Palkia has been dominating a little bit, but that card's also weak to Lightning, and Lightning is going to be played a little bit to counter some of these water decks, so it's interesting. It's one of those things where you just got to kind of shape this deck as your own, but this is currently the list that I'm enjoying when it comes down to it. And I mean, it might not be the best Arceus variant in the entire world, but it's really just here as a Arceus, VSTAR, Inteleon is probably just the, like, go-to. You don't necessarily beat anything, but you also don't necessarily lose anything. So it depends on which perspective you're looking into it, but this can certainly be a hot deck. Sliding into number 7, and it's ice cold when it comes to Ice Rider Calyrex. I promise I'll try to stick less puns in here, but one of those things, Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, well positioned because there's a lot of V-Star Pokemon hitting over and over again with doing 250 plus Choice Belt plus Radiant Hawlucha allows you to hit for those like 280 to 310 marks, so that's one thing that I'm certainly excited about. Palkia V-Star here allows you to accelerate energies if necessary to your different Pokemon, and that's the way that I'm seeing it. You kind of have a little bit of a Arceus Inteleon build a little bit, where we're going to be searching things out with Melanie and Irida and just kind of grabbing things out with Inteleon. I mean, most Inteleon engines for water-based decks are going to look the same. So, I mean, to me, this looks like a very concrete, solid build of this deck. It's not necessarily the best deck in the world, but it is a very strong deck. And it's very, again, middle of the road. So as long as you're hitting V-Stars, you're probably okay. If you're not hitting V-Stars, you might struggle a little bit. And that's the way that I've always looked at Ice Rider. It's not a deck without its flaws, but it is fairly consistent, so might be a good deck to get points at Milwaukee, might be a good deck to kind of grind through ladder, but it might not ultimately win the tournament as well. What are your thoughts on this deck? Let me know below, and let's jump into the next deck. Moving on up there to number 6 is Dark and Lightning Toolbox. It used to just be Dark Toolbox, but now we added some Lightning type support because Palkia has been exploding onto the scene. And as you can see, there's a lot of Water type decks that are weak to Lightning on this list, so Lightning type is just absolutely busted. We're going to be searching through various things in this deck. You can see Inteleon lines are all looking pretty similar. It's one of those things where Galarian Moltres, you're just going to beam it down after your opponent's drawn some prize cards, use its ability, accelerate energies, and attack with Fiery Wrath. We had a Galarian Moltres V in here for good measure, because Mew VMAX is still a filthy, busted, broken deck. Hoopa's a great attacker, Zigzagoon can add damage whenever necessary. Raikou and Zeraora are both strong against decks that are weak to Lightning. Otherwise, they can be generalized attacker, and Manaphy is going to be for Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and Radiant Greninja. Really where we've added in some cool things is like the super effective glasses to be able to open up some plays with Galarian Moltres, with the Zeraora in order to get some OHKOs. Pretty simple yet very complex deck. I mean, you have these very basic attackers that you're just going to try to make things happen that are going to be good at various points throughout the game. This deck isn't for the faint of heart, and I recommend testing it a little bit. We'll see exactly how it turns out, but right now I think that this deck is absolutely a solid choice going forward because it can handle the metagame quite well. It is a little bit fragile, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it in best of 1, but if you are playing in Milwaukee, this does look like a solid choice for best of 3. Hopping into our number 5 pick, and that's going to be Regigigas. It's not a deck that I necessarily expected to be here, but here we are, Regigigas up in this business. You're going to be using Ancient Wisdom on Regigigas to accelerate energies to your various Regis as situations see fit. I've played this deck in a couple online tournaments over the past week, really fallen in love with this deck, really feel like I have a deeper understanding of this deck right now, and there's some cool things that I've added in here. I mean, regardless of whatever Regi you're attacking with, I think you have to read them all because there's just so many situations and matchups where they can all be good. Choose the right typing, choose the right damage output, and understand the limitations of your deck. That being said, I added in a second Regidrago, so we have more opportunities to use Dragon's Horde. A lot of players aren't necessarily playing the Dragon Energy Regidrago. 240 is kind of necessary in a lot of cases to be able to knock out Pokemon V that you don't have a type advantage against. Or maybe even if you hit something with Terra Spark Regieleki, you could do 40 damage there. It's one of those things where you can kind of get a knockout with a Choice Belt on a lot of these Pokemon. So keep your numbers in mind. There's a lot of cool things. I also added in one of the electromagnetic Regielekis that allows you to search your discard pile for a trainer card. I believe it's a trainer card. I could be wrong. It's one of those things where I've only played it online, so I just kind of like look through the cards that it allows me to do. But we have ways around Ice Q and other things with Boss's Orders and Escape Rope in order to bring it back and knock that out and kind of take an auto loss situation and turn it into a dub. There's also a lot of ways for you just kind of search things out and come up with some compelling plays. Overall, I really like how this deck turned out. I like a lot of the cards that we added into this deck. It just seems like we're in a strong position, and you just have all the Regis, and you're just trying to build up Regis. It's a strong single prize card deck. Check it out if you haven't already. It's relatively budget and super fun. Sliding into our number 4 pick is going to be Arceus VSTAR with Malamar VMAX. So we're going to be using Arceus VSTAR to accelerate onto our Malamar VMAX. And Malamar VMAX is all going to be about using its Max Jammer attack, so doing 180 damage, ripping a card that you choose out of your opponent's hands. When you combine that with Marnie, Path to the Peak, and locking off your opponent's water type abilities with Jolteon Memory Capsule, you have a compelling lock here. And if we think about water Pokemon, this deck was already seeing success in the Brilliant Stars formats, and that was really, really cool. We saw a lot of strong players take this deck to Vancouver Regionals and see success. We recently just gained Radiant Greninja and Origin Form Palkia V-Star, and then that's not including the Drizzile, Inteleon, stuff like that. So I mean, we got a cool little bit of options here, and I mean, I think this deck is just well constructed between a lock and control deck. The typing's really good, the Jolteon locking things is really good. There's just some really cool things going on with this deck. It's kind of basic, it's kind of bulky, it can sometimes clunk up, but when you're able to kind of go Marnie and rip cards out of your opponent's hand, it's cool. I want to get Roxanne in here. It's also just hard to time that Roxanne at the right time. So that's why we went with Marnie in this list, but it is a card that I'm constantly taking in and out of this deck, so stay tuned for that. I think this deck is absolutely broken. So if you're looking for a really good fallback deck, to me this is a really good fallback deck for this format. Here we have it, one of those new decks on the block, and that is Palkia V-Star with Inteleon. This is a traditional Palkia V-Star deck, and it's very similar to the one that Henry Brand ran at Melbourne Regional Championships. I mean, what world do we live in? Like, we have literally list plugged by the world champion on Twitter. So that's what I try to incorporate into all my lists. If I don't have the best list, I will source the best list. So shout out to everyone who's helped contribute to these decks and helps me build these decks. I mean, I'm in VCs with like Aiden Cuss and Cal Connor, Von O'Brien. Like, I'm always asking for advice, and I try to find the best list whenever. And if I can't find a best list, I'm asking for advice on the best list. So shout out to all my homies. Yeah, Palkia V-Star is just gonna be about accelerating energies to itself with its V-Star ability and your other Pokemon that are water type. You can see it's very much a water type toolbox deck. Just going Subspace Swell and attacking is quite an effective thing. To me, this just seems like better Arceus Inteleon. Palkia V-Star is probably just the best V-Star that we have in the game right now, and it's very aggressive. I like the Leon in this deck. I think my change here is that I play Leon and Henry plays Tool Jammer. Tool Jammer could be cool. It's one of those things where I just like Leon more to potentially get some more knockouts here and there. But overall, yeah, I think that a deck like this is just really well constructed, really great. So if you're trying to prepare for Milwaukee, this is definitely going to be one of the decks that you're going to be expecting, and probably some other variants of this deck as well. Palkia V-Star is on everyone's mind, so if you haven't picked them up already, I don't necessarily see a world where they don't continuously go up, because this deck is the real deal now. I think we're getting closer to those final forms. What's going to be our number 2 deck? We'll find out real soon. I'm sure it's going to surprise some of you. Here you have it, the surprising inclusion at number 2. It's one of those things where number 2 is usually number 1. Mew VMAX has usually been on top of the metagame, but this is where my current list is at for the deck. After the metagame is shaped up, we can kind of go down to a 4-2 Mew VMAX. I really think Trekking Shoes is very good. I think catchers are mandatory right now. This, to me, is the exact list and probably the only list that I'd be playing for Mew VMAX, based off everything else that we have on this list that I think is incredibly accurate for this current time in the metagame. A lot of people might be like, nah, Zach, you should be including on this deck. I literally spent hours compiling this list after I found the results of Melbourne Regionals Card Trooper event. To me, this is a very close deck. I mean, things might go up 1 or down 2 spaces, but really accurate. Mew VMAX is all about using its Cross, Fusion, Strike, attack, copying different attacks like Genesect V or Meloetta, stuff like that, accelerating energies. You can bring up whatever you want. You can get Silene to get your cards back. You can have double turbo that counts as double energies. Bring things up from your opponent's discard pile. I worked incredibly hard on this deck, and I now think that you could probably get away with 2 stadiums. There's not enough Path to the Peak in the format to really justify playing 3 to 4, but that's currently my opinion. Again, things are subject to change, and I don't ever want to be like, hey, Zach, you played Mew VMAX at Milwaukee, and you played 3 stadiums, what the heck? This is my current thoughts right now, but this is where I'm pretty much secured. I'd have to be talked off the ledge when it comes to this deck. Mew VMAX is really cool, but it is not the number 1 deck. It is one of those things where this deck might be well positioned. It might be the best neutral deck in the formats. But what is our number 1 deck right now? Put your best guesses in the comments below. And again, use this time, if you haven't already, to like this video, click that notification bell, and subscribe if you haven't already. Message your friends while you're guessing and ask them what you think the best deck is or what you think Zach thinks the best deck is. All those things would really be appreciated. Let's get into it. Here's our number 1 pick. Turbo Palkia VSTAR, the deck that won Melbourne Regional Championships with Christian Hasbani. It's the same exact 60, came second with Kaiwin, Quan, and their whole other group saw a lot of success with it as well throughout the top of the tournament. This deck is very similar to that Turbo Dialga deck, and I said it with the Dialga deck. We'll get to this deck in a little bit. I don't know if y'all thought it was going to be number 1. After playing this deck for a little bit, all the different attackers, all the different choices that we have in this deck, I've looked over this deck and I think it's as close to flawless as I've seen for a deck like this right now. Of course, that group, I totally love it. They'd comment on this video or anything else like that. But it is one of those things where I think that the way that they have it just to search things out with Mew, get the Palkias powered up, and then just going boss, boss, boss every single turn to basically win the game is absolutely incredible. My wife took this deck to a second place tournament second place in a tournament last night. Like, the deck is just on fire, hot. So if you're looking for a top deck or a deck to watch out for and play, I think this is totally where it's at. Different attackers work out for different matchups. So I think just using Starmie if your opponent has a lot of energies in play. But reasonably, you're just kind of trying to go 2-2-2. Very aggressive deck similar to Mew. So if you do like aggressive decks, I think this one's incredibly aggressive. We might see a lot of lightning support come out this week. I know people have been experimenting with Flying Pikachu, Surfing Pikachu, Bolton VMAX, Tapu Koko VMAX. Those are decks that can beat this, but they don't really beat much else is what I've come to learn. So if you have any lightning decks, let me know in the comments below what they are, and if they beat Palkia VSTAR. But right now this deck seems absolutely incredible. So I totally recommend for all y'all to check this out. And it's cheaper than a normal Palkia deck because it only plays 2/2 Palkia, right? So pretty cool stuff overall there. But this is our number 1 pick for this one. Let me close y'all out. And that's what we got going on for this video today. Hopefully you enjoyed these top 10 decks. Do you think it's any different? Again, let me know in the comments. Let's spark a discussion. Even just saying a hi, saying bump for the algorithm, saying, yo, what's up, Zach? I love the videos. Even saying you hate the videos. Just let me know something. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm a lot. And giving a thumbs up, like, really helps boost that as well. If you've already subscribed, tell a couple friends, ask them if they've subscribed to the Zach Lesage YouTube channel. Let's get to those 12K subs on our mission to 100K subs. I hope all of you have a safe travels to your next events. I mean, I'm going to be in Milwaukee and North American Internationals, so if I get a chance to catch up with any of y'all there, it would be great if we could. That being said, I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out, have a great day, and stay tuned for a filled week. Absolutely exciting week of content. Check out PTCGO Store.com, the best place to get Pokemon TCG online codes. There's a lot of selection available, and I have a discount code available for the website as well. You could pick up any kind of cards, just going up here. You could add them to your cart in any quantity that you need to get the cards that you need. And you can go to the discount code right over here, and you could put in code ZLesage5 to save 5% on your next order of codes. Are you trying to get better at Pokemon TCG? Well, if you are, you're in the right place. I offer coaching at metafy.gg/@ZachLesage. That link is in the description, and you can pick up a coaching session from me and book it on the website. I likely have availability this week, and you can see exactly what my availability calendar is at any given time. I offer training plans to help players get ready for any of their upcoming events, including getting all the way to the World Championships, or you can pick up a one-on-one coaching session from me and learn the game at your own pace. I offer a variety of opportunities for players to get better at the game, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of players who I've turned into regional, international, and even a world champion along the way. If there's anything that shows, I have an FAQ on the website, so by all means, check it out and get better today. I'd love to help you on your Pokemon journey and be absolutely amazing to see your growth. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It means the world to me. And my goal with this channel is to spread my love of the game and knowledge with our entire Pokemon TCG community. If you haven't already, help signal boost this video to other Pokemon TCG fans by liking it, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Hopefully we reach our goals really soon. Check out this recommended video, and have yourself a great day. Thanks.